So we'll start talking about sample suitability and eligibility. So as you can imagine, each GLH receives a significant number of pregnancy loss samples each year. And these can range from very early pregnancy losses in the form of products of conception, later losses where we tend to get placental tissue samples. We sometimes get cord. I think this is more common in UHL, in the Leicester laboratory, but we also get sometimes fetal parts depending on whether the sample, the body is sort of fetus is degraded or whether it's come from our mortuary. So unfortunately, not all samples are eligible for testing, but even when we receive a sample that's not eligible, we will extract DNA from the pregnancy loss. This is there unless they are fixed or there's no material of fetal origin. So the team will look at the sample and try and ascertain whether there's any villi in there or fetal parts or anything that's clearly fetal that we can test. And again, with early losses, quite often they don't really contain anything that's clearly villi or fetal material. So we will always extract. The DNA is stored, certainly within Cambridge, is stored for at least 30 years. Our regulations state that a minimum of 8 weeks after the final report has been authorised, but we tend to say 30 years here, and if families, just in case family studies are needed, not necessarily always the case with pregnancy loss samples, but we just have a standard 30-year caveat on our storage. We'll always extract because we know that a repeat sample is not always possible, and so therefore we'll always extract it and store it. Well, a repeat sample is never possible. Patients, however, can request for the DNA to be destroyed at any point. So sample suitability, what do we want from you guys and how should the sample be sent to us? Well, the sample should be received as fresh as possible, so this avoids degradation of the tissue. Obviously sometimes with a miscarriage there's some degradation anyway, but ideally the sample should arrive in tissue transport media, which we can supply. This media contains antibiotics which sort of help the sample arrive in the best condition. The sample should be within a pot, not fixed, and it should be, the pot should be in a sample bag and then sent in appropriate packaging. So this can be either a padded envelope if it comes through to us through the post, or a box. I know some departments have couriers, so yeah, whatever the best way for you to transport the sample as quickly as possible to us is. The most important thing along with this is the sample should be well labelled and it can be sent with a comprehensively completed referral form. So on this screen, this is an example of not a very well completed referral form because it simply states recurrent miscarriage. And we'll come on to the reasons for testing, but we need to know the number of miscarriages, and having this statement just saying recurrent miscarriage is very, very common on our referral forms. And some of you may be quite familiar with our scientific support officers who will make a phone call to ascertain whether someone is eligible for testing or not. So please include the number of miscarriages to avoid us having to make that telephone call or send that email or delay the testing, because it makes our job a lot easier. So we should have, this is an example of a referral form, or this is how our referral form is presented to you. It should always contain a clinician, the referring hospital and the department, and an email address. So most reports now are sent out by email. If there's no email, it makes it very hard for us to send out a report, and again involves phone calls or we just can't report the sample. All the patient demographics should be completed, and where possible, if known, obviously the gestation of the pregnancy. And this is sort of falls under the prenatal section testing of the form, which is slightly odd, but that's where you can put the gestation week, so at the top of this section. Partner's name, date of birth, obviously useful in case they've had previous testing, but not necessary in all cases. We also want an R code from you, so the clinical information. So R codes are for miscarriages are a 318, and as I said earlier, this must include the number of miscarriages. Recurrent miscarriages is not sufficient, and for R22 it should include any fetal anomalies if there are any, and the gestation of that pregnancy. So that all needs to go in the clinical information box.